Okay, hello, this is Jacob Hiller with the Jump Manual and freeverticaljumptraining.com. I'm going to try and make this quick. I know I can get windy. But listen, what we're talking about today is abdominal training. I don't know how many people have come up to me and said, you know what, the real secret to training is abdominals. Or during a conversation they say, yeah, that can increase your vertical, but the real secret is you get that, that six-pack going on. Or people who say, my friend jumps out of the gym and he's got a crazy six-pack, so I've been doing my crunches and I'm going to be able to jump out of the gym. Well, the truth be told, abdominals, while they do play a role in the vertical jump, they do not play a prime mover role, meaning they do not play really a primary role in propelling you upwards. So let's talk about what the abdominals do. First of all, the abdominals work with the hip flexors to create the counter movement. So basically what your abdominals are doing at your midline is they're folding you forwards at the midline. What your hip flexors do is they fold you forward at the waistline. So your hip flexors come in through the center of your leg into the center of your body. So abdominals fold you forward, which is called spinal flexion, and your hip flexors also fold you forward at the midline, which is called hip flexion. And what this does, which is the first role of abdominals, is the counter movement. So the vertical jump counter movement is right before you jump, your whole body coils. So you're ready to throw your torso upwards, you're ready to extend your hips, you're ready to extend your knees, extend your ankles, and throw yourself upwards. But what you should be realizing is that counter movement is all about putting you more towards the ground. So it is true that a faster counter movement will help you utilize a greater percentage of your explosion. However, if your prime movers, if your glutes and your hams and your spinal erectors are not strong enough in the first place, a faster counter movement is really not going to do much for you, and really it could hinder you. I mean, if you really get your counter movement going quickly and the opposite muscles, the opposing muscle groups are not strong enough to support that velocity, you're really not going to be jumping any higher at all. You're going to be jumping lower. So those of you who are only focusing on your abs and you're thinking you know the secret, not many people know the secret is abs. Well, what you're going to end up doing is not going to be beneficial. And it is, well, before we get to that, let's move on to the second role of abdominals, which again is in cooperation with the hip flexors, the psoas. So this second role is the braking mechanism of the vertical jump. Okay, so you've done the counter movement. Here's what's happening. You got spinal flexion, then you've got hip flexion. Now you're going to jump. So you've got spinal extension and you've got hip extension. Now your torso is being thrown backwards. Now if you don't have a mechanism to break that, to stop that, you're going to end up flat on your back. Okay? So what happens is your abdominals and your hip flexors activate to keep you from just going all the way to the back, all the way to the floor. Now that's important because if you cannot properly stop that backwards motion, your body's probably not going to allow you to use the maximum force you're capable of. Because one, it's going to injure you. If there's more velocity going backwards than you're able to stop with your abs and your hip flexors, you're going to injure your abs, you're going to injure your hip flexors. And your body knows that, there's sensors all over your body that know how strong and how much power you're able to create, and they're not going to allow you to do something that will be injurious. So you need to keep that in mind. Now, we've talked about two roles. One, counter movement. Two, the braking mechanism. That's what abs and hip flexors do. Okay, now is it possible to overtrain your abs? Well, yes, it is possible, because think about the opposing muscle groups. As far as spinal flexion, that's moving forward, that spinal flexion at the midline, the prime mover, or what moves you to jumping higher, is called the spinal erectors, and that does spinal extension, which is this way. So if you're so strong in the midsection that those abs work against the spinal extension, then it will slow the prime movement, the important movement to throwing you upwards. So if you're overtraining your abs and in contrast, undertraining your spinal erectors, it's not going to work in your favor.
Okay, now let's get to something a little more positive, because I know some of you were counting on the abs and the six-pack to get you jumping a lot higher. I don't want to burst your bubble here, but what a lot of people may want to really tell you is that the core can help you jump higher. And here's why. The abs are a part of the core. The core really essentially is the muscles about your center of gravity. So the center of gravity is at your hip line, and so your glutes, your abdominals, your obliques, your lower back, these are all muscles that are involved in manipulating movement about your center of gravity. It's very important, because the better you're able to manipulate your center of gravity, the more mobile, the more athletic you're going to be. One more thing about your core is the stronger, the more sturdy your core is, the better you're going to be able to transfer energy from your lower body, from the ground all the way up into exploding upwards. Now, to experiment with that, I want you to take a pencil with a big fat eraser on it, and I want you to drop it on its eraser, okay? And you'll notice that it will bounce off the ground or off your desk from that eraser up into the air. Then what I want you to do is break that pencil and tape it up real nice. Tape it up real solid, and it's not going to be quite like new, but it's going to be pretty solid. It's going to be still a pretty solid pencil, I want you to hold it over again, the desk, and drop it on its eraser. What you'll notice is that it's not going to bounce near as high. It may not even bounce at all. And the reason is because it's not able to transfer that energy upwards. And the same thing is with your body. If about your center of gravity and your center line, you are not solid and you are not able to withstand and transfer energy correctly, all the power you're pressing into the ground with your calves, with your hamstrings, with your glutes, with your quads, all that power is going to lose traction at the center line when you are not able to correctly transfer it up into the air. And you're not going to feel like you're collapsing. You're just not going to feel extremely explosive. Okay? So that's why it's so important. People are always talking about the core. Well, that's why. The core does propel you upwards, and the core does transfer energy from the ground into your body through the air. And just so you know, I did put a blog post about this with a little more information, and you can go to that. It's in the information box, and you can comment there or comment here, and I'll try and answer your questions about that. And hope this was informative to you, and really it's going to help you understand what role the abdominal training aspect of your training should play in a global scope. And just remember, where the power is coming from is those prime movers. And the prime movers of the vertical jump are your calves, your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes, your spinal erectors, and your shoulders. And once those muscles are able to properly fire, then you can support them with other things like the counter movement, faster counter movement, with plyometric development, with better range of motion, with better muscle quality, with better central nervous system training, so that you can utilize those muscles more efficiently. There's a lot of other things we could talk about, but unless you have those prime movers able to develop and output a lot of power, there's all your other efforts are going to be futile. A lot of people are coming to me and saying, they're doing such and such really neat training technique, or they're doing such and such really neat training technique, but the problem is all the other training techniques are really going to be built around optimizing and using more efficiently the power you've created in your prime movers. And without that as a base, those other training techniques are really going to serve as a distraction, and they're going to temporarily get your excitement up, and they're going to temporarily get your hopes into something that really should be secondary and should be not the prime focus of your training regimen. So anyways, hope this helps. Please comment below and rate my video if you can. Thank you. Bye-bye.